The fury of a forgotten Pat. Before he was the great Caliph, before he was known as Al-Farooq, the one who distinguishes truth from falsehood, he was a man on a mission, his sword drawn for the head of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. This is the story of Hazrat Umar ibn Al-Khattab, and how a prayer made in the barren valley of Mecca turned Islam's fiercest enemy into its greatest champion. In those early days, the Prophet's followers were few, hunted, and weary. His supplication was not for armies or riches, but for a man, a single, powerful man who could turn the tide. As recorded by the scholar At-Tirmizi, he prayed, "O God, strengthen Islam with the one who is more beloved to you of these two men, Abu Jahl ibn Hisham or Umar ibn Al-Khattab." How can the destiny of a faith hinge upon a single heart? Can a man forged in the fires of opposition become the bedrock of the very message he seeks to crush? Our story begins in the 6th year of the Prophet's mission, in a city of sun-baked stone and deeply entrenched traditions. Mecca was the domain of the Quraysh, a proud tribe whose prestige stemmed from their custodianship of the Kaaba, the ancient cube-shaped house of God built by Abraham and Ishmael, peace be upon them. But the legacy of monotheism was buried. The sacred courtyard was a marketplace of idolatry, cluttered with 360 stone and wooden gods. Here, power was measured in lineage, wealth, and the ferocity of one's tribal honor. Into this world, the Prophet Muhammad brought a message that was terrifying in its simplicity. Worship God alone. This was not just a spiritual suggestion, it was a revolution. It dismantled the entire social order. It declared that piety, not pedigree, was the measure of a person. The idols and the power structure they represented were rendered worthless. The response was swift and savage. A wave of persecution was unleashed upon the Prophet's followers. The weak were tortured under the merciless Arabian sun. Some were martyred for refusing to renounce their faith. And at the forefront of this brutal suppression was a man who embodied Qurayshi fury, Umar ibn Al-Khattab. Tall, broad-shouldered, a champion wrestler with a fearsome reputation, Umar was not merely an opponent of Islam. He was its active persecutor. He viewed the new faith as a seditious movement that tore families apart and insulted the honor of his ancestors. He took the conversions of his own kinsmen as a personal stain, mercilessly beating his own slave girl for accepting the message, stopping only when he himself was exhausted. His presence in the streets of Mecca was a source of dread for the believers who practiced their faith in secret. As Islam continued to spread quietly, the frustration of the Qurayshi leaders boiled over. In a desperate meeting at their assembly house, they reached a dark conclusion. The Prophet himself had to be eliminated. They needed an assassin, a man whose courage and standing were so great that he could withstand the inevitable blood feud. One man's rage had reached its peak. Umar ibn Al-Khattab rose to his feet. He had seen enough. He would be the one to silence this voice, to restore the unity of Mecca, to cut out the heart of this rebellion. He strode out into the glaring sunlight, strapped his sword to his side, and set off with murderous intent toward the house of Al-Arqam, where the Prophet and his companions secretly gathered. The hero of the old ways was on a mission to save his people. He did not know he was walking toward the death of the man he was and the birth of the man he was destined to be. The confrontation with truth. A man walking to commit murder is a man who believes his path is straight, but the will of God can introduce curves where none are expected. As Umar marched through Mecca, he was intercepted by a man from his tribe, Nu'aym ibn Abdullah, who had secretly embraced Islam. Seeing the cold fire in Umar's eyes, Nu'aym knew he had to act. He could not physically stop the powerful warrior, so he used the one weapon that could pierce Umar's armor, his pride. "Where are you going in such a state, Umar?" Nu'aym asked. "To the man who has divided our people and insulted our gods," Umar snarled. "I am going to Muhammad." Nu'aym's voice was sharp. "By God, you are deceiving yourself. Do you think the tribe of Banu Abd Manaf would let you walk this earth after you murder their kinsman? Before you disgrace yourself, go back to your own house and put it in order." Umar froze. "My own house? What is wrong with my own house?" Nu'aym delivered the fateful words. "Your sister Fatimah and her husband, your cousin Said, have forsaken your religion. They follow Muhammad. Deal with them first." The news was a thunderclap. The poison he sought to purge from Mecca had infected his own bloodline. His rage, now multiplied with a sense of personal betrayal, found a new target. He spun around and stormed toward his sister's house, his footsteps hammering against the dirt road. Inside, a sacred lesson was underway. The companion, Khabbab ibn al-Arat, was teaching Fatimah and Said from a parchment bearing a new revelation, Surah Taha. As Umar burst in, Khabbab scrambled to hide, and Fatimah quickly concealed the precious text. "What was that humming I heard?" Umar demanded. When they denied it, he exploded. "I have been told you are followers of Muhammad!" He lunged at his brother-in-law, and when Fatimah threw herself between them to protect her husband, Umar struck his own sister across the face, drawing blood. This was the moment the straight path of his rage shattered. He stared at his sister, who stood not in fear, but in fiery defiance. Wiping the blood from her lip, she looked him in the eye and said, "Yes, Umar, we are Muslims. We believe in God and His messenger. Now do what you will." Her courage, born of a faith he could not comprehend, and the sight of her blood on his own hand, extinguished his fury. It was replaced by a cold, hollowing shame. What was this belief that made his sister fearless? What were these words that could make her stand against him? A new feeling stirred in his soul, an overwhelming, desperate curiosity.
"Show me what you were reading," he said, his voice now quiet. His sister, seeing the change but still standing her ground, refused. "You are unclean in your idolatry," she said. "Only the purified may touch these words." The great Umar, the champion of the Quraysh, submitted. He went and washed himself, an act that symbolized the washing away of a lifetime of arrogance. When he returned, his sister handed him the parchment. The hands that had set out to destroy the Quran were now holding it for the first time. The death of the old Umar. Umar sat down. The world outside fell away. He began to read the words of Surah Taha. Taha. "We have not sent down to you the Quran that you be distressed, but only as a reminder for those who fear God, a revelation from He who created the earth and the high heavens. To him belongs what is in the heavens and what is on the earth, and what is between them, and what is under the soil. Quran chapter 20, verses 1 through 6. It was as if light was pouring into a chamber that had been sealed for a lifetime. These were not the words of a poet or a sorcerer. This was a description of power so absolute it made the gods of Mecca seem like dust motes in a sunbeam. It spoke of a mercy so vast it cradled the universe. He continued reading about the prophet Moses, confronting the arrogant Pharaoh, and in the tyrant's pride he saw a horrifying reflection of himself. A profound destruction was taking place. The Umar, defined by his tribe, his strength, and his anger, was being annihilated, verse by verse. In its place, something new and raw was being born. Tears streamed down his face. Awestruck, "How beautiful and noble are these words," he whispered. The companion Habab emerged from his hiding place, his own eyes shining. Excitedly, "Oh, Umar, I believe God has answered the prayer of his prophet for you." Umar had only one destination. He left his sister's house and walked back to the house of Al-Arqam. This time, he was not driven by hate, but by a soul-shaking need for the man he had set out to kill. When the companions saw him approach, sword still at his side, they were terrified. But the Prophet's uncle, the formidable warrior Hamza, stood up. "Let him in," he declared. "If he comes for good, we will welcome it. If he comes for evil, we will kill him with his own sword." The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, walked forward and seized Umar by his cloak. "Will you not stop, O Umar?" he asked, his voice filled with divine authority, "until God sends down a calamity upon you?" Before this presence, the mighty Umar crumbled. Humbled and broken, he spoke the words that would echo through eternity. "O messenger of God, I have come to you to believe in God and his messenger." He then uttered the declaration that sealed the death of his old self and announced his rebirth. "I bear witness that there is no God but God, and I bear witness that you are the messenger of God." A cry of pure, explosive joy erupted from the small house, a sound so powerful it rolled across the valley. Every companion shouted in unison, "God is the greatest!" The prayer had been answered. The dawn of a new era. The conversion of Umar was not the addition of one more Muslim. It was the day the entire faith stood up and walked into the sunlight. It was Umar who, brimming with this new righteous energy, went to the Prophet and asked, "Are we not on the path of truth?" "Yes," the Prophet replied. "Then why should we hide?" Umar declared. For the first time, the Muslims marched out of their hiding place in two rows, one led by Hamza and the other by Umar. They walked to the Kaaba, the heart of their opposition, and prayed openly. The Quraysh watched, stunned into silence. As the companion Abdullah ibn Masud later said, "We had been unable to pray at the Kaaba until Umar accepted Islam. The era of fear was over. The man who was once their terror had become their shield." Umar was given a new title, Al-Farooq, the one who distinguishes truth from falsehood. His life became the ultimate testament to transformation. The story serves as an eternal lesson that no one is beyond the reach of God's guidance. It teaches that true strength is not the power to intimidate, but the courage to conquer one's own ego. It proves that a single heart, one captured by a truth greater than itself, can redirect the river of history. The man who left his home to extinguish the light of Islam became the very man who would carry that light as a caliph, building an empire of justice and compassion. His journey from being the sword of the opposition to the shield of the faithful is perhaps the most powerful story ever told of how a man can be broken down and remade by the will of God.